Minimalists.
You know, the biggest thing I'm getting from this conversation is how important it is to live in the moment. Like, no matter where you're at in life, to find some way to appreciate what you have. And then the other thing is, Josh and I talk a lot about lowering expectations but raising our standards. And when it comes to love, when, you know, that quote that Josh brought up about, you know, giving something that you don't have to someone that doesn't want it, it's like the best way that I can explain it is, like, living in Los Angeles, my experience with it was really rough at first. Yeah. And I was telling Josh about this. I'm like, dude, I love LA, but LA doesn't really love me. Yeah. And he's like, well, what's wrong? I'm like, dude, I go to like coffee shop. Hey, how's it going? And they're just like, yeah, can I take your order, dude? Like, what drugs are you on? Why are you so happy? What do you want out of me? Who do you think I mean, there's like all these prejudgments. Yeah. So Josh, he's like, dude, you have to turn it down, or you need to turn it up. Yeah. So I said, all right, I'll turn it up. So now when I have those moments where I walk in somewhere, and now like I have in regular spots where like people, you know, they pretty much know me by now, but you know, I'll go somewhere, hey, I'm Ryan, nice to meet you. How's your day going? And they kind of give me that, what do you want to do? What drugs you're on? I'll be like, can I take your order? You can't take my order, but first I want you to tell me how your day is going. Like, I'll just be kind of silly and goofy. And I will express that, you know, the kindness or the love that I feel without any expectation of getting it back. Yeah. And sometimes I don't get it back, and that's okay. But I will say that when I'm in the moment with that love and I push through that barrier, I will have much better results, and results that I didn't expect. So, you know, when Josh and I were having that conversation and he was like, yeah, I would recommend turning it down or turning it up. Yeah. You know, when I first started turning it up, I just thought, I'm just going to make an ass of myself now, like when I go to different places. But
I hear you're very good at that.
But yeah, I'm very, very good at that. But it turns out I'm about 20% good at that, because the majority or 10%, I mean, the majority of the time, the vast majority of the time, when I push through that barrier without, so I'm living in the moment. I am giving with any expectation of giving back. That's raising my standard. That's what I mean. That's what we mean by raising our standard. My standard is be myself, be genuine, push through, be honest, and be consistent. Those are my standards. I don't expect Josh to treat me any way if I act that way. I don't expect you to treat me a certain way if I act that way. But what happens is by pushing through that the trepidation of being ourselves, that truly to me is what is freeing, I guess, is when you can again love without expecting to get loved back. Yeah. And you can raise those standards and keep the low expectations, because you know, when your expectations are so low, it's you're really surprised with the results you get a lot of the times.
I think it's as long as those standards are high too.
Of course.
So we have Pete's book here, which you can't get unless you're a Patreon supporter of his. It's called Enduring Love, because I think there's only 500 copies of the thing. Oh, yeah. But like, it would be great.
It's called Enduring Love, by the way, because love is so difficult to endure. And because that's the thing we haven't got into, is that love is a very difficult, it brings us to the heights but also the depths. Anyway, keep going.
Well, and the thing that I think about with a book like this, with respect to expectations versus standards, like, it'd be really great if all of a sudden it sold 1 million copies, a New York Times bestseller, like that. But if that's your expectation going into it, even if you get that, like, that's going to feel fulfilling for a moment, but it's going to be fleeting. The standard is like, but can I write a book? By the way, this has a bunch of, it's I guess you would call it like comics or illustrations, but with like all of these little pithy aphorisms, parables, etc., about enduring love. And the standard is like, I'm going to put my best foot forward, knowing that it's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's not going to be the superhero version. Yeah. But when you talk about living in the moment, I'm going to enjoy doing the actual work of creating this thing.
Yeah. There's an interesting distinction in philosophy and psychoanalysis between pleasure and enjoyment. And so, of course, we use these words interchangeably in everyday life, but you can distinguish them by saying pleasure is the good feeling you get from, say, finishing the book. Mm-hmm. And enjoyment is the pleasure you get, the warm feelings you get from the work itself. Mm-hmm. So at Christmas time, you see a kid waiting for their Christmas presents, and they almost hate it, and they're jumping up and down, having a temper tantrum and all of that. But there's an enjoyment. They can't wait to get the present. That's enjoyment. And then pleasure is the moment that you open the present. Mm. And we all know that the enjoyment is better than the pleasure, right? That's what when you buy a holiday, you're not just buying a holiday, you're paying for the fantasy of the holiday. That's kind of folded into the money. That's why you should never buy a holiday off the cuff. Or a lottery ticket. Your $1 isn't for the win. You're paying $1 for the fantasy of the win, right? So, and so we often think that pleasure is the key, the end, but actually we have to find, how do we get a warmth and a depth from enjoyment, which is the struggle.
And that's where love is, because I think those ephemeral things we mistake for love, but really love is that deep pursuit. Yeah,
I think about, remember Ella on my daughter's 5 now, but when she was 3, for her birthday, I got her a pineapple for her 3rd birthday.
Nice.
And it perfectly illustrates exactly what you're talking about there. There was pleasure in the opening of it, but the enjoyment was the anticipation. She saw it wrapped, and you could tell it was a freaking pineapple. It was a pineapple shaped present, but like the opening, there was this sort of fleeting ephemeral thing, but everything leading up to it, that enjoyment, the anticipation, was really what was memorable of the experience.